The 154 sonnets that were published in 1609 without the approval of their well-known 45-year-old author are an extraordinary series of poems. Some few of them, and parts of many others, are so perfect or so powerful that they are among the best poems in our language. Some few, and parts of others, are offensive to many readers because of their triteness or their frank bawdry. In poetic quality, they range from the best to almost the worst, as in their subject matter they explore a wide variety of human interests and yet return again and again to a central dominating theme, the destructive power of time. For the prospective reader of the sonnets, the best advice is simply that he read them and reread them, ignoring commentary until his aroused interest may lead him to it. Even better advice is that of the great 18th century critic, Dr. Johnson, who insisted that a man ought to read just as inclination leads him, for what he reads as a task will do him little good. To which he added, if a man begins to read in the middle of a book and feels an inclination to go on, let him not quit it to go to the beginning. He may perhaps not feel again the inclination. Groups of lyric poems. I would suggest that first reading of the sonnets begin with short groups of them, such as 29 to 33, 60 to 66, 112 to 102 through 107, and 128 through 130, supplemented by such individual sonnets as 15, 55, 71, 73, 87, 94, 116, and 146. These include some 24 of the best sonnets and fairly indicate the scope of the series. Few readers who begin with these will not feel an inclination to go on, and fewer of those who indulge that inclination will not, sooner or later, read through the series from the beginning and thereby discover a dozen more good sonnets and many more strikingly interesting ones, as for example 8, 12, 18, 27, 49, 57, 81, 110, and 138. If at that point the reader returns to the massive and bewildering array of commentary inspired by the sonnets, he will probably become hopelessly lost among the conflicting eccentric theories that have been woven about them. They do not form a coherent narrative of events in Shakespeare's personal life, although many critics have tried to persuade us that they do. Rather, they are individual lyrics and short groups of lyrics that refer to a number of relationships in a vaguely suggested dramatic situation. The characters of the drama. The characters in the suppressed drama are at least four. 1. The speaker, or the I of the sonnets, not necessarily to be directly equated with the author. 2. One, or more than one, younger male friend who is urged to marry and beget children in 1 through 17, and to whom most of the first 126 sonnets are addressed. 3. One or more than one dark lady who appears in 40 through 42 and to whom most of the sonnets 127 through 152 are addressed. 4. One or more than one rival poet who is referred to in sonnets 78 through 86. The drama covers several years, as sonnets 97 onward and especially 104 indicate, but there is no sound evidence that these sonnet years refer to the actual years 1593 through 1596 and after, during which the sonnets were probably written. Shakespeare is, first and foremost, a dramaticist, and whatever personal involvements may ultimately underlie the sonnets, his objectifying dramatic instinct must have taken over, partially or completely, in the process of writing many, if not most of them. Therefore, the numerous attempts that have been and will be made to identify the persons involved in the drama which the sonnets suggest are finally irrelevant to our main interest in them, as a collection of lyrics by one of the world's greatest dramatists. Dangers of rearrangement. The reader who turns from the sonnets to commentary on them should also be wary of the work of the rearrangers. To be sure, their attempts to make a more coherent narrative of the sonnets is less apt to get in the way of our response to them than are the attempts of the identifiers, whose primary aim is to reconstruct an episode in Shakespeare's life. Furthermore, the rearrangers have rightly pointed out that the order of the sonnets in the 1609 edition, the only one published in Shakespeare's lifetime, is probably not that in which Shakespeare composed them, nor that in which Shakespeare would have arranged them had he been consulted about their publication. Indeed, it cannot be shown that all of the sonnets in the collection are his, or that the collection includes all of the sonnets he may have written besides the few that are incorporated into his plays, in Love's Labour's Lost and Romeo and Juliet. But the score or more of rearrangements that have appeared are quite as contradictory and frequently eccentric as are the theories of the identifiers, and the attempt to make a coherent narrative of the sonnets inevitably tends to shift our response away from their lyric quality where it properly belongs. History of the sonnet. The sonnet form, imported from Italy and France, became increasingly popular in 16th century England, and sonnet sequences flourished in the 1590s. The sonnet is one of the most difficult of popular lyric forms to handle successfully. This is particularly true of the Italian and Spenserian forms of the sonnet, which use only 5 rhymes in their differently constructed 14-line patterns. The English or Shakespearean form uses 7 rhymes in an arrangement that lends itself most readily to a 4-part structure rhyming A B A B C D C D E F E F G G, where each letter stands for a different rhyme at the end of each of the 14 10-syllable lines. But this form, with its greater liberty in choice of rhymes, is not so easy to handle as it seems to be. The sonnet form. Some of Shakespeare's most successful sonnets do divide readily into the 3 quatrains and concluding couplet that the rhyme scheme suggests is natural to the form. In these, as in 71 and 73, we find 3 conclusions on a theme capped by a concisely stated logical conclusion. But not all of Shakespeare's subjects lend themselves to this natural treatment of the form. Many of the sonnets are divided into only 3 or even 2 parts, usually after the first 8 lines, but in one extreme instance, 66, a sonnet is one long sentence with the break in the thought occurring only at the last line. One of the chief difficulties of the form, and one which Shakespeare only rarely surmounts, is to keep the tone, pace, and intensity of the final couplet consistent with the rest of the sonnet. Again and again, the couplet seems to be merely tacked onto the poem, rather than being an integral part of it. In these final jingles, where the rhymes are so close together, Shakespeare has his greatest difficulty in maintaining the feeling of poetic sincerity that we find in the first 12 lines of most of the sonnets. Time as the central theme. The lyrical center of these poems is the recurrent concern with time's thievish progress to eternity. Time is visualized as a wasteful and swift-bodied thief or bloody tyrant, whose ragged hand crushes and defaces all earthly things, with the aid of such implements as his sickle, his chisel, his spade, his hoe, and his dart, with which he kills men. He is equated variously with hours, days, years, winter, age, and death. He not only destroys physical beauty, but also threatens the human values of friendship and love. The conflict in the drama of the sonnets is their speaker's war with time for love of the friend addressed. The earliest sonnets argue that earthly immortality can be achieved by the friend if he will marry and beget children. But the bulk of the sonnets promise another sort of earthly immortality, which only the poet-speaker can confer on his friend, the fame that will result from his being praised in immortal poetry. In only one sonnet, 146, is the immortality seen in otherworldly terms, and this one is addressed not to the friend, but to the speaker himself. To be sure, many of the sonnets do praise the friend or friends, but many of the best of them are more intensely concerned with time's destructive power, with the speaker's disillusionment with this world, and even with the ironical defense of the friend's faults, friendship and love. We can trace an increasingly ironic and realistic attitude toward the friend from sonnets 33 through 36, where his stain, or shame, is first mentioned, through sonnets 93 through 69, where his vices are more severely dealt with. 2 of the greatest sonnets, 87 and 94, are perhaps most bitterly ironic in this particular group. In 87, friendship is treated as though it were a legalized commercial transaction. Note how the tone of resignation is reinforced by the continual falling cadences of rhyme words ending in ing, These lengthen the lines by the addition of an 11th unstressed syllable and slow down the movement of the sonnet. In 94, the friend is analyzed as a cold, calculating, and selfish manipulator of the emotions of others. This is a far cry from the conventionally romantic attitudes that permeate the early sonnets and the sonnet sequences of Shakespeare's contemporaries. The early sonnets hardly prepare us for the realistic treatment of the friend or the strictly sensual handling of the dark lady that is to follow. But neither do these groups of sonnets prepare us for the strong, unromantic defiance of time in sonnets 115 and 116 and in 123 and 124, where the values of love are asserted against a background full of awareness and of disillusionment with the world and its ways. Love is not love, which alters where it altercation finds. It is an ever-fixed mark. It was builded far from accident. It fears not policy, that heretic. These realistic affirmations are the climax of the sonnets, if any climax can be isolated by the fools of time. Scope of the sonnets. Even from this brief discussion, it will be easily seen that the sonnets are immense in scope, ranging in attitude from the romantic to the most realistic, and dealing with a variety of such topics as most nearly concern all human beings. Indeed, Professor Heider Rollins, whose monumental edition of the sonnets should be consulted by those who would like to see how extensive the commentary on them has been, has remarked, Shakespeare would be a great and famous poet if he had written nothing but the sonnets. There is something in the sonnets for every reader. For the student of Shakespeare, the sonnets not only present fascinating links with many of the plays, from Love's Labour's Lost, Richard II, and Romeo and Juliet, through Hamlet and Troilus and Cressida, but also exhibit a stylistic development that seems almost in capsule form to parallel the development of Shakespeare's dramatic styles from the early 1590s, when in the later years of Elizabeth's reign he first appeared as a playwright, to the mid-1600s, when, early in the reign of James I, he was acknowledged to be England's foremost dramaticist. For the poet, especially for the lyric poet, the sonnets are a remarkable textbook. From them he can learn as much about the craft of verse just because the stories are so uneven in poetic quality. For the general reader, the sonnets have been and will surely continue to be a source of great aesthetic satisfaction and of tantalizing speculation. I can only hope that if readers of this introductory essay find any temptation to join the ranks of the rearrangers or the identifiers, they will sternly resist it. S. F. Johnson, Columbia University. There is an approximate chronology of Shakespeare's life and work here, but I am not going to read it. I'm sorry. If you want one, you can look it up. Sonnet 1. From fairest creatures we increase desire that thereby beauty's rose might never... From fairest creatures we desire increase that thereby beauty's rose might never die, but as the riper should by time decrease, his tender air might bear his memory. But thou, contracted to thine own bright eyes, feed'st thy lights flame with self-substantial fuel, making a famine where abundance lies. Thou art thy foe, to thyself sweet self too cruel, that thou art now the world's fresh ornament, and only herald to the gaudy spring. Within thine own bud buryest thy content, and, tender churl, makest thy waste in niggarding. Pity the world, or else this glutton be, to eat the world's due by the grave in thee. Sonnet 2. When 40 winters shall besiege thy brow, and dig deep trenches in thy beauty's field, thy youth's proud livery so glazed on now will be a tattered weed of small worth held, than being asked where all thy beauty lies, and where all the treasure of thy lusty days, to say within thine own deep sunken eyes were an all-eating shame and thriftless praise. How much more praise deserved thy beauty's use, if thou couldst answer, This fair child of mine shall sum my count, and make my old excuse, proving his beauty by succession thine. This were to be new made when thou art old, and see thy blood warm when thou feel'st it cold. Sonnet 3. Look in thy glass and tell the face thou viewest, now is the time that face should form another, whose fresh repair, if now thou not renewest, thou dost beguile the world and bless some mother. For where is she so fair whose unaired womb disdains the tillage of thy husbandry? Or who he is so fond will be the tomb of his self-love to stop prosperity? Thou art thy mother's glass, and she in thee calls back the lovely April of her prime. So thou through windows of thine age shalt see, despite of wrinkles, this thy golden time. But if thou live remembered not to be, die single, and thine image dies with thee. Sonnet 4. Unthrifty loveliness, why dost thou spend upon thyself thy beauty's legacy? Nature's bequest gives nothing, but doth lend, and being frank, she lends to those are free. Then, beauteous Nigard, why dost thou abuse the bounteous largesse given thee to give? Profitless sir, why dost thou use so great a sum of sums, yet canst not live? For having traffic with thyself alone, thou of thyself thy sweet self dost deceive. Then how, when nature calls thee to be gone, what acceptable audit canst thou leave? Thy unused beauty must be tuned with thee, which used lives the executor to be. Sonnet 5. Those hours that with gentle work doth frame the lovely gaze where every eye doth dwell, will play the tyrants of the very same, and that unfair which fairly doth excel. For never resting time leads summer on to hideous winter, and confounds him there, sap-checked with frost, and lusty leaves quite gone, beauty o'ersnowed, and bareness everywhere. Then were not summer's distillation left, a liquid prisoner pent in walls of glass. Beauty's effect with beauty were bereft, nor no remembrance what it was. But flowers distilled, though they with winter meet, lose but their show, their substance still lives sweet. Sonnet 6. Then let not winter's ragged hand deface in thee thy summer ere thou be distilled. Make some sweet vial, treasure thou some place with beauty's treasure ere it be self-killed. That use is not forbidden usury, which happens those that play the willing lone. That's for thyself to breed another thee, or 10 times happier, be it 10 for 1. 10 times thyself were happier than thou art, if 10 of thine 10 times refigured thee. Then what could death do if thou shouldst depart, leaving thee living in posterity? Be not self-willed, for thou art much too fair to be death's conquest and make worms thine heir. Sonnet 7. Lo, in the Orient, when the gracious light lifts up his burning head under each eye, doth homage to his new appearing sight, serving with looks his sacred majesty, and having climbed the steep up heavenly hill, resembling strong youth in his middle age, yet mortal looks adorn his beauty still, attending on his golden pilgrimage. But when from highmost pitch with weary car, like feeble age, he reeleth from the day, the eyes fortuitous now converted are from his low track, and look another way. So thou thyself outgoing in thy noon, unlooked on diest unless thou get a sun. I do believe the pronunciations of that have changed since the 1600s. Sonnet 8. Music to hear, why hearest thou music sadly? Sweet with sweets war not, joy delights in joy. Why lovest thou that which thou receivest not gladly, or else receivest with pleasure thine annoy? If the true concord of well-tuned sounds by unions merry do offend thine ear, they do but sweetly chide thee who confounds in singleness the parts that thou shouldst bear. Mark how one string, sweet husband to another, resembles each, strikes in and each by mutual ordering, resembling sire and child and happy mother, who all in one pleasing note do sing, whose speech a song being many, seeming one, sings this to thee, thou single wilt prove none. Sonnet 8. Sonnet 9. Is it for fear to wet a widow's eye that thou consumest thyself in a single life? Ah, if thou issueless shall hap to die, the world will wail thee like a mateless wife. The world will be thy widow, and still weep that thou no form of thee hast left behind, when every private widow may well keep by children's eyes her husband's shape and mind. Look, what an unthrift in the world doth spend shifts but his place where the world still enjoys it. But beauty's waste hath in the world an end, and kept unloved the user so destroys it. No love in others in that bosom sits, and that on himself such murderous shame commits. Sonnet 10. For shame, deny that thou bearest love to any, who for thyself art so improvident. Grant, if thou wilt, thou beloved art of many, but that thou none lovest is most evident. For thou art so possessed with murderous hate, that against thyself thou stickest not to conspire, seeking that beauteous roof to ruminate, which to repair should be thy chief desire. Oh, change thy thought, that I may change my mind. Shall hate be fairer lodged and gentle than gentle love? Be, as thy presence is, gracious and kind, or to thyself at least kind-hearted prove. Make thee another self, for love of me, that beauty still may live in thine or thee. 11. As fast as thou shalt wane, so fast thou growest in one of thine from that which thou departest, and that fresh blood which youngingly thou bestowest, thou mayest call thine when thou from youth convertest. Herein lies wisdom, beauty, and increase. Without this folly, age, and cold decay. If all were minded so, the time should cease, and 80 years would make the world away. Let those whom nature hath not made for store, harsh, featureless, and rude, barrenly persist. Look, whom she best endows, she gave the more. Which bounteous gift thou shouldst in bounty cherish. She carved thee for her seal, and meant thereby that thou shouldst print more, not let that copy die. 12. When I do count the clock that tells the time, and see the brave day sunk in hideous night, when I behold the violet past prime, and sable curls all silvered over with white, when lofty trees I see barren of leaves, which erst from heat did canopy the herd, and summer's green all girded up in sheaves, borne on the bier with the white and bristly beard. Then of thy beauty I do question make, that thou amongst the wastes of time must go, since sweets and beauties do themselves forsake, and die as fast as they see others grow. And nothing 'gainst time's scythe can make defence, save breed to brave him when he takes thee hence. 13. Oh, that you were yourself, but love you are, no longer yours than you yourself here live. Against this coming end you should prepare, and your sweet semblance to some other give. So should that beauty which you hold in lease find no determination than you were yourself again after yourself cease. When your sweet issue your sweet form should bear, who let so fair a house fall to decay, which husbandry and honour might uphold against the stormy gusts of winter's day, and barren rage of death's eternal cold. Oh, none but unthrifts, dear my love, you know, you had a father, let your son say so. 14. Not from the stars do I my judgment pluck, and yet methinks I have astronomy, but not to tell of good or evil luck, of plagues, of deaths, or seasons' quality. Nor can I fortune to brief minutes tell, pointing to each his thunder, rain, and wind. Or say with princes, if it should go well, by oft predict that I in heaven find. But from thine eyes my knowledge I derive, and constant stars, in them I read such art as truth and beauty shall together thrive, if from thyself to store thou wouldst convert, or else of thee in this I prognosticate. Thy end is truth's and beauty's doom and date. 15. When I consider everything that grows holds in perfection but a little moment, that this huge stage presenteth naught but shows, whereon the stars in secret influence comet. When I perceive that men, as plants increase, cheered and checked even by that self-same sky, vaunt in their youthful sap at height decrease, and wear their brave state out of memory, then the conceit of this inconsistent stay sits you most rich in youth before my sight, where wasteful time debateth with decay, to change your day of youth to sullied night, and all in war with time for the love of you, as he takes from you, I engraft you anew. 16. But wherefore do you not a mightier way by make war upon this bloody tyrant time, and fortify yourself in your decay with means more blessed than my barren rhyme? Now stand you on the top of happy hours, and many maiden gardens yet unset, with virtuous wish would bear you living flowers, much liker than your painted counterfeit. So should the lines of life that life repair, which this time's pencil or my pupil pen, neither in inward worth nor outward fair, can make you live yourself in eyes of men. To give away yourself keeps yourself still, and you must live drawn by your own sweet skill. 17. Who will believe my verse in time to come, if it were filled with your most high deserts, though yet heaven knows it is but as a tomb which hides your life and shows not half your parts? If I could write the beauty of your eyes, and in fresh numbers number all your graces, the age to come would say, this poet lies, such heavenly touch has never touched earthly's faces. So should my papers, yellowed with their age, be scorned like old men of less truth than tongue, and your true rights be termed a poet's rage, and stretched metre of an antique song. But were some child of yours alive in that time, you should live twice, in it and in my rhyme. Unpause. Sonnet 18. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shape the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. And sometimes too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed. And every fair from fair sometimes declines, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest. Nor shall death brag thou want'st in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou grow'st. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. 19. Devouring time, blunt thou the lion's paws, and make the earth devour her own sweet brood. Pluck the keen teeth from the fierce tiger's jaws, and burn the long-lived phoenix in her blood. Make glad and sorry seasons as thou fleets, and do whate'er thou wilt, swift-footed time, to the wide world and all her fading sweets, but I forbid thee one most heinous crime. Oh, carve not with thy hours my love's fair brow, nor draw no lines there with antique pen. Him in the course untainted do allow for beauty's pattern to succeeding men. Yet do thy worst, old time, despite thy wrong, my love shall in my verse live forever young. 20. A woman's face with nature's own hand painted, hast thou, the master mistress of my passion, a woman's gentle heart, but not acquainted with shifting change as is false woman's fashion, an eye more bright than theirs, less false and rolling, gilding the object whereupon it gazeth, a man in hue, all hues in his controlling, which steals men's eyes and women's souls amazeth, and for a woman wert thou first created, till nature, as she wrought thee, philodoting, and by addition of me thee defeated, by adding one thing to my purpose nothing. But since she pricked thee out for women's pleasure, mine be thy love, and thy loves use their treasure. 21. So it is not with me as with that muse, stirred by a painted beauty to his verse, who heaven itself for ornament doth use, and every fair with his fair doth rehearse, making a couplement of his proud compare, with sun and moon, with earth and sea's rich gems, with April's firstborn flowers and all things rare, that heaven's air in this huge rondeur hymns. Oh, let me, true in love, but truly right, and then believe me, my love is as fair as any mother's child, though not so bright as those gold candles fixed in heaven's air. Let them say more that like of hearsay well, I will not praise that purpose not to sell. 22. My glass shall not persuade me I am old, so long as youth and thou are of one date. But when in time's furrows I behold, then look I death my days should extirpate. For all that beauty doth cover thee is but the seemly raiment of my heart, which in thy breast doth live as thine in me. How can I then be elder than thou art? Oh, therefore, love, be of thyself so wary, as I not for myself, but for thee will, burying thy heart which I keep so chary, as a tender nurse her babe from faring ill. Presume not on thy heart when mine is slain, thou gavest me thine not to give back again. 23. As an unperfect actor on the stage, who with his fear is put besides his part, or some fierce thing replete with too much rage, whose strength's abundance weakens his own heart, so I, for fear of trust, forget to say the perfect ceremony of love's rite, and in mine own love's strength seem to decay, or charged with burden of mine own love's might. Oh, let my books then be the eloquence and dumb presagers of my speaking breast, who plead for love and look for recompense, more than that tongue that hath more expressed. Oh, learn to read what silent love hath writ, to hear with eyes belongs to love's fine wit. 24. Mine eye hath played the painter, and hath styled thy beauty's form in the table of my heart. My body is the frame wherein it is held, and perspective is best painter's art. For through the painter must you see his skill, to find where your true image pictured lies, which in my bosom shop is hanging still, that hath his windows glazed with thine eyes. Now see what good turns eyes for eyes have done. Mine eyes have drawn thy shape, and thine for me are windows to my breast, where through the sun delights to peep, to gaze therein on thee. Yet eyes as cunning want to grace their art, they draw but what they see, know not the heart. I'm hoping this is just misnumbered, but 26. Lord of my love, to whom in vassalage thy merit hath my duty strongly knit, to thee I send this written assemblage, to witness duty, not show my wit. Duty so great, which so poor as mine, may make seem bare and wanting words to show it. But that I hope some good conceit of thine, in thy soul's thought all naked will bestow it. Till whatsoever star that guides thy moving points on me graciously with fair aspect, and puts peril on my tattered loving, to show me worthy of thy sweet respect. Then I may dare to boast how I do love thee, till then not show my head where thou may prove me. 27. Weary with toil, I haste to my bed, the dear repose for limbs with travel tired. But then begins a journey in my head, to work my work when body's work's expired. For then my thoughts from far where I abide intend a zealous pilgrimage to thee, and keep my drooping eyelids open wide, and looking on darkness which the blind do see, save that my soul's imaginary sight presents thy shadow to my sightless view, which, like a jewel hung in ghastly night, makes black night beauteous and her old face new. Lo, thus by day my limbs, by night my mind, for thee and for myself no quiet find. 28. How then can I return in happy plight, that I am debarred the benefit of rest, when day's oppression is not ceased by day by night, and by night and night by day oppressed, and each through, though enemies to either's reign, do consent shake hands to torture me, the one by toil, the other to complain? How far I toil, still farther off from thee. I tell the day to please him thou art bright, and dost him grace when clouds do blot the heaven. So flatter I the swart complexioned night, when sparkling stars twired not thou gild'st e'en. But day doth daily draw my sorrows longer, and night doth nightly make grief's strength same stronger. 29. When in disgrace with fortune and men's eyes, I all alone beweep my outcast state, and trouble deaf heaven with my bootless cries, and look upon myself and curse my fate, wishing me like to one more rich in hope, featured like him with friends possessed, desiring this man's art and that man's scope, with what I most enjoy contented least, yet in these thoughts myself almost despising. Haply I think on thee, and then my state, like to the lark at break of day arising, from soul and earth sings hymns at heaven's gate, for thy sweet love remembered such wealth brings, that I then scorn to change my state with kings. 30. When to the sessions of sweet silent thought I summon up remembrance of things past, I sigh the lack of many a thing I sought, and with old woes new wail my dear time's waste. Then can I drown an eye unused to flow for precious friends hid in death's stateless night, and weep afresh love's long since cancelled woe, and moan the expense of many a vanished sight. Then I can grieve at grievances foregone, and heavily from woe till o'er, the sad account of bemoaned moan, which I knew pay as if not paid before. But if the while I think on thee, dear friend, all losses are restored, and sorrows end. 33. Full many a glorious morning I had seen flatter the mountain tops with sovereign eye, kissing the golden face, the mountains green, guiding pale streams with heavenly alchemy, anon permit the basest clouds to ride with ugly wrack on his celestial face, and from the forlorn world his visage hide, stealing unseen to west with this disgrace. Even so my sun one early morn did shine, with all triumphant splendour on thy brow. But out, alack, he was but 1 hour mine, the region cloud hath masked him from me now. Yet him for this my love no whit disdaineth, sons of the world may stain when heaven's sun sustaineth. 34. Why didst thou promise such a beauteous day, and make me travel forth without my cloak, to let base clouds o'ertake me in my way, hiding thy bravery in their rotten smoke? 'Tis not enough that through the clouds that thou break, to dry the rain on my storm-beaten face, for no man well of such a salve can speak, that heals the wound and cures not the disgrace. Nor can thy shame give the physic to my grief, though thou repent, yet still have I the loss. The offender's sorrow lends but weak relief to him that bears a strong offence's cross. Ah, but those tears are pearl which thy love sheds, and they are rich in ransom all ill deeds. 35. No more be grieved at that which thou hast done. Roses have thorns in silver fountains mud. Roses and ellipses stain both sun and moon, and loathsome canker lives in sweetest bud. All men make faults, and even I in this, authorizing my trespass with compare, myself corrupting, salving all thy amiss, excusing thy sins for more than thy sins are, For to thy sensual fault I bring incense, thy adverse party is thy advocate, and 'gainst myself a lawful plea commence, and such civil war is in my love and hate, that I an accessory needs be to that sweet thief which sourly robs from me. 36. Let me confess that we two must be twain, although our undivided loves are one. So shall those blots that do with me remain, without thy help by me be borne alone. In our two loves there is but one respect, though in our lives a separable spite, which though it doth alter not love's sole effect, yet it's still sweet hours from love's delight. I may not evermore acknowledge thee, lest my bewailed guilt should do thee shame, nor thou with public kindness honour me, lest thou take that honour from thy name. But do not so, I love thee in such sort, as thou being mine, mine is thy good report. 27, not 27, 37. As a decrepit father takes delight to see his active child do deeds of youth, so I, made lame by fortune's dearest spite, take all my comfort of thy take all my comfort of thy worth and truth, whether beauty, birth, or wealth, or wit, or any of these all, or more, entitled in thy parts to crowned sit, I make my love engrafted to the store. So then I am not lame, poor, nor despised, whilst that this shadow doth such substance give, that I in thy abundance am sufficed, and by all a part of thy glory live. Look what is best best I wish in thee, this wish I have, then 10 times happy me. 38. How can my muse, once subject to invest, while thou dost breathe, thou pourest in my verse, thine own sweet argument too excellent for every vulgar paper to rehearse? Oh, give thyself the thanks if aught in me worthy perusal stand against thy sight. For who's so dumb that cannot write to thee, when thou thyself when thou thyself dost give invention light? Be thou the 10 muse 10 times more in worth than those old 9 which rhymers invocate, and he that calls on thee, let him bring forth eternal numbers to outlive long date. If my slight muse do please these curious days, the pain be mine, but thine shall be the praise. 39. Oh, how thy worth with manners may I sing, when thou art all the better part of me? What can mine own praise to mine own self bring, and what is't but mine own when I praise thee? Even for this let us divided live, and our dear love lose name of single one, that by the separation I may give that due to thee which thou deservest alone. O absence, what a torment thou wouldst prove, were it not thy sour leisure gave sweet leave to entertain the time with thoughts of love, which time and thoughts do so sweetly doth deceive, and that thou teachest how to make one twain, by praising him here who doth hence remain. 40. Take all my loves, I think that is 40. I had to check, it is in fact 40. Sonnet 40. Take all my loves, my love, yea, take them all. What hast thou then more than thou hadst before? No love, my love, that thou mayest true love call. All mine was thine before thou hadst this more. Then if for my love that my love receivest, I cannot blame thee for my love thou usest, but yet be blamed if thou thyself deceivest, by wilful taste of what thyself refusest. I do forgive thy robbery, gentle thief, although thou steal thee all my poverty, and yet love knows it is a greater grief to bear love's wrong than hate's known injury. Lascivious grace, in whom all ill will shows, kill me with spites, yet we must not be foes. 41. Those pretty wrongs that liberty commits, when I am sometimes absent from the heart, thy beauty and thy years full well befits, for still temptation follows where thou art. Gentle thou art, and therefore to be won, beauteous thou art, therefore to be assailed, and when a woman woos what woman's son will sourly leave her till she have prevailed. Ay me, and yet thou mightest my seat forbear, and chide thy beauty and thy straying youth, who led thee in their riot even there where thou art forced to break a twofold truth, hers by thy beauty tempting her to thee, thine by thy beauty being false to me. 42. That thou hast her, it is not all my grief, and yet it may be said I love her dearly. That she has thee, it is of my wailing chief, a loss in love that touches me more nearly. Loving offenders, thus will I excuse ye. Thou dost love her, because I know'st I love her, and for my sake even so she doth abuse me, suffering my friend for my sake to approve her. If I lose thee, my loss is my love's gain, and losing her, my friend hath found that loss. Both find each other, and I lose both twain, and both for my sake lay me on this cross. But here's the joy, my friend and I are one, sweet flattery, then she loves but me alone. 42. When most I wink, then do my eyes best see, for all the day they view things unrespected, but when I sleep in dreams they look on thee, and darkly bright are bright and dark directed. And then thou whose shadows doth make bright, how would thy shadows form happy show to the clear day with thy much clearer light, when to unseeing eyes thy shade shines so. How would, I say, mine eyes be blessed made by looking on thee in the living day, when in dead night thy fair imperfect shade through heavy sleep on sightless eyes doth stay. All days are nights to see till I see thee, and nights bright days when dreams do show me thee. 44. If the dull substance of my flesh were thought, injurious distance could not stop my way. For then despite of space I would be brought from limits far remote where thou dost stay. No matter then, although my foot did stand upon the farthest earth removed from thee, for nimble thought can jump both sea and land, and soon as think the place where he would be. But thought kills me when I am not thought, to leap large lengths of miles when thou art gone. But that so much of earth and water wrought, I must attend time's pleasure with my moan, receiving not by elements so slow, but heavy tears, badges of either's woe. 45. The other two, slight air and purging fire, are both with thee wherever I abide. The first my thought, the other my desire, these present absent with swift motion slide. For when these quicker elements are gone, in tender embassy of love to thee, my life being made of four, with two alone, sinks down to death, oppressed with melancholy, until life's composition be recurred by those sweet messengers returned from thee, who even but now come again assured of thy fair health, recounting it to me. This I joy, but then no longer glad, I send them back again, and straight grow sad. 46. Mine eye and heart are at a mortal war, how to divide the conquest of thy sight. Mine eye, my heart thy picture sight would bar, my heart, mine eye, the freedom of that right. My heart doth plead in that thou in him dost lie, a closet never pierced with crystal eyes. But the defendant doth that plea deny, and say in him thy fair appearance lies. Beside this title is impanelled a quest of thoughts all tenants to the heart, and by their verdict is determined the clear eye moiety and the out dear heart's part. And thus mine eyes do is thine outward part, and my heart's right thine inward love of heart. 47. Betwixt mine eye and heart a league is took, and each doth good turns now unto the other. When that mine eye is famished for a look, or heart in love with sighs himself doth smother, when my love's picture then my eye doth feast, and to the painted banquet bids my heart. Another time mine eye is my heart's guest, and in his thoughts of love doth share a part. So either by thy picture or my love, thou thyself away art present still with me, for thou not farther than my thoughts can move, and I am still with them and they with me. Or if they sleep, thy picture in my sight awakens my heart to heart's and eyes' delight. 48. How careful was I when I took thy way, each trifle under truest bars to thrust, that to my use it might unused stay, from hands of falsehood insure wards of trust. But thou, in whom my jewels trifles are, most worthy comfort, now my greatest grief, thou best of dearest and mine only care, art left the prey of every vulgar thief. Have I not locked up in any chest, save where thou art not, though I feel thou art. Within the gentle closure of my breast, from whence at pleasure thou mayst come and part. And even thence thou wilt be stolen, I fear, for truth proves thievish for a prize so dear. 49. Against that time, if ever that time come, when I shall see thee frown on my defects, when as thy love hath cast his upward sum, called to that audit by advised respects, against the time when thou shalt strangely pass, and scarcely greet me with that sun thine eye, when love converted from the thing it was, shall reasons find of settled gravity, against that time I do ensconce me here with the knowledge of mine own desert, and this my hand against myself uprear, to guard the lawful reasons on thy part. To leave me poor thou hast the strength of laws, since why to love I can allege no cause. 50. How heavy do I journey on the way, when what I seek my weary travels end, doth teach me that ease and that repose to say, thus far the miles are measured from thy friend. The beast that bears me tired with my woe plods duly on to bear that weight in me, as if by some instinct the wretch did know his rider loved not speed, being made from thee. The bloody spur cannot provoke him on, that sometimes anger thrusts into his hide, which heavily he answers with a groan, more sharp to me than spurring to his side. For that same groan doth put this in my mind, my grief lies onward and my joy behind. 51. Thus can my love excuse the slow offence of my dual bearer, when from thee I speed. From where thou art, why should I haste me thence, till I return of posting is no need? Oh, what excuse will my poor beast then find, when swift extremity can seem but slow? Then should I spur though mounted on the wind, in winged speed no motion shall I know. Then can no horse with my desire keep pace, therefore desire of perfect love being made, shall neigh no dull flesh in his fiery race, but love for love shall excuse my jade, since from thee going he went wilful slow, towards thee I'll run and give him leave to go. 52. So am I as the rich whose blessed key can bring him to his sweet locked locked treasure, the which he will not every hour survey, for the blunting of the fine point of seldom pleasure. Therefore feasts are so solemn and so rare, since seldom counting in the long year set, like stones of worth they thinly placed are, or Captain Jules in the carcanet. So is the time that keeps you as my chest, or as the wardrobe which the robe doth hide, to make some special instant special blessed by new unfolding his imprisoned pride. Blessed are you whose worthiness gives scope, being had to triumph, being lacked to hope. 54. Oh, how much more doth beauty beauteous seem by that sweet ornament with truth which truth doth give. The rose looks fair, but fairer we it deem for that sweet odour which doth in it live. The canker blooms has as full as deep a dye as the perfumed tincture of the roses. Hang on such thorns and play as wantonly when summer's breath their masked buds discloses. But for their virtue only as their show, they live unwooed and unrespected fade, die to themselves. Sweet roses do not so, of their sweet deaths are sweetest odours made. And so of you, beauteous and lovely youth, when that shall fade, my verse distills your truth. 55. Not marble nor the gilded monuments of princes shall outlive this powerful rhyme, but you shall shine more bright in these contents than unswept stone besmirched with sluttish time. When wasteful war shall statues overturn, and broils root out the work of masonry, nor Mars' sword nor war's quick fire shall burn the living record of your memory. 'Gainst death and all oblivious enmity shall you pace forth, your praise shall still find room, even in the eyes of all posterity, that wear this world out to the unending doom. Still, till the judgment that yourself arise, you live in this and dwell in lovers' eyes. 56. Sweet love, renew thy force, be it not said, thy edge should blunter be than appetite, which but to-day by feeding is allayed, to-morrow sharpened in his former might. So love be thou, although to-day thou fill thy hungry eyes, even till they wink with fullness, to-morrow see again and do not kill. The spirit of love with a perpetual dullness, let this sad interim like the ocean be, which parts the shore where two contracted new come daily to the banks, that when they see return of love, more blessed may be the view. Or call it winter, which being full of care, makes summer's welcome thrice more wished, more rare. 57. Being your slave, what should I do but tend upon the hours and times of your desire? I have no precious time at all to spend, nor services to do till you require. Nor dare I chide the world without end hour, while I, my sovereign, watch the clock for you. Nor think the bitterness of absence sour, when you have bid your servant once adieu. Nor dare I question with my jealous thought where you may be or your affairs suppose, but like a sad slave stay and think of naught, save where you are how happy you make those. So true a fool is love that in your will, though you do anything, he thinks no ill. 58. That God forbid that made me first your slave, I should in thought control your times of pleasure, or at your hand the account of hours to crave, being your vassal bound to stay at your leisure. Oh, let me suffer, being at your beck, the imprisoned absence of your liberty, and patience, tamed to sufferance, bide with each check, without accusing you of injury. Be where your list your charter is so strong, that you yourself may privilege your time to what you will, to you it doth belong, yourself to pardon of self-doing crime. I am to wait, though waiting so be hell, not blame your pleasure, be it ill or well. 59. If there be nothing new but that which is, hath been before, how are our brains beguiled, which labouring for invention bear amiss the second burden of a former child? Oh, that record could do with a backward look, even of 500 courses of the sun, Show me your image in some antique book, since mine at first in character was done, that I might see what the old world could say to this composed wonder of your frame, where we are mended or where better they, or whether revolution be the same. Oh, sure am I the wits of former days to subjects worse have given admiring praise. 60. Like as the waves make toward the pebbled shore, so do our minutes hasten to their end, each changing place with that which goes before, in sequent toil all forward do contend. Nativity, once in the main of light, crawls to maturity, wherewith being crowned, crooked eclipses gainst his glory fight, and time that gave doth now his gift confound. Time doth transfix the flourish set on youth, and delves the parallels in beauty's brow, feeds on the rarities of nature's truth, and nothing stands but for his scythe to mow. And yet, to times in hope my verse shall stand, praising thy worth despite his cruel hand.